The deal is done. We now know that the WGA and the AMPTP, they were negotiating for the past 5 days straight. They've been at the go since Wednesday. Today, on Sunday, they finally got the deal done. We know that the CEOs of a lot of the big studios were at these negotiations for several days. We don't know if they were there all 5 days, but of course, all the big executives had to be involved in the end because they were on, what was it, like the 146th day of the strike,
Yep.
which is longer than even the last strike. So let me ask you, Angelina, could you give me like a sense of like how are we, how did we get here? Where do we stand now? And where do we go from here? What are the next steps?
Okay, so they sat down today. They finally came to an agreement. Today was the 146th day of the strike. Essentially, they have agreed to another 3-year term deal. It is tentative just until it is ratified by both WGA West and East. That could take a few days. And if there's any telling based off of the last strike in 2007 to 2008, it'll take about 3 to 4 days to get ratified on WGA's side. But everything is agreed to. The WGA has only released a statement sort of outlining what's going on right now. But they haven't outlined all of the terms for us yet. I'm assuming it'll take a few days for them to write all that up, get their statements together, cohesive, etc., and then release that. As I said, it's another 3-year deal, which is in line with like what they've been doing. And I think that's going to give them a little bit more time to like see how AI advances, how that affects the economy, etc. This sort of like economy, but this sort of lay of the land. You know what I mean? We don't know how AI is going to progress, and we don't fully know how it's going to feed into Hollywood yet. Yeah. So I know that was one of the big things holding them back. So I'm really interested to know exactly what the sort of dirty details are of the agreement. The second it is ratified in the next few days, WGA is allowed to go back to work. But you guys have to keep in mind the AMPTP still has not reached any agreements with SAG-AFTRA. So any of the productions that haven't gotten an interim agreement cannot go back to filming. But all of the late night talk shows can literally start immediately. So Wednesday night, I'm sort of like tentatively expecting there to be Jimmy Fallon and the Late Night Show and Conan O'Brien. Those will all come back to immediately. Now the AMPTP has to go ahead and figure things out with SAG. And that's what's going on right now. That's the deal.
Yeah, and SAG, I think right now is like on its fourth month, or no, the third month of the strike, if I'm correct. So
yeah, they started striking about a month after WGA.
And we were reading up on the various statements and of course all the good reporting around this, whether it's Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, all the big outlets, and they mentioned that from their understanding at least, that the studios asked like, hey, can we get all these writers, let's put pen to paper and let's get them back to work. Will they do that? And they basically said, look, they made it clear, the WGA did, that those writers will not come back to work on projects until the SAG strike is done, the projects that are struck by SAG. And like you mentioned, daytime talk shows like the Drew Barrymore show, like the Jennifer Hudson's show, The Talk, the Real Time with Bill Maher, which is like, a late night show. So all of those shows that have been in the spotlight recently that were going to come back, that, moved their premieres off because of the strike, all of those can go into production basically as soon as this is ratified.
Yep.
So that's good news. The other piece of good news here is that we're no longer going to have to deal with at least 2 strikes going on, which was a huge bummer for not only Hollywood, but in general, just the economy.
I mean, they have estimated that the strikes have cost the California economy over $5 billion.
That's huge.
Just, $5 billion. And
over the course of like
just for California.
Not even half a year. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. Like that's not even what worldwide what the strikes have affected.
So there's knock-on effects to all the productions that got shut down in other parts of the world that were SAG and WGA signatories. Now there are some other pieces of news here as well, because we can kind of go into a little bit of detail here. We have got the statement from from the WGA, and I'll just read off a little bit of it. And you can find this, you Google it online, you can check out the whole statement and you can read it for yourself. But they basically said, "Dear members, we have reached a tentative agreement on the new 2023 MBA," which is referring to the bargaining agreement, which is to say an agreement in principle on all deal points subject to drafting final contract language. So basically, they're still working on the language of the contract. And what we have won in this contract, most particularly everything we have gained since May 2nd, is due to the willingness of this membership to exercise its power, to demonstrate its solidarity, to walk side by side, to endure the pain and uncertainty of the past 146 days. That's like 4.5 months. It is the leverage generated by your strike in concert with the extraordinary support of our union siblings that finally brought the companies back to the table to make a deal. We can say with great pride that this deal is exceptional, with meaningful gains and protections for writers in every sector of the membership. Now, you guys can read the whole statement and kind of get a better idea of everything that they said. But like you said, Angelina, the biggest thing that was like these last hurdles they had to overcome were the issue of AI, and then the issue with like writing staff, the staff room levels for these writers' rooms. And it seems like they were able to kind of hash it out. Maybe they put some things off for the next deal, and now they have 3 years. So for whatever that they couldn't figure out or couldn't exactly get where they wanted to be, now they can work towards it for the next 3 years, which I think, look, ultimately, if you have a work stoppage that goes this long, and this is not the only work stoppage going on right now. Of course, we have the SAG strike, but then also we have like the automotive workers strike going on in Detroit, and like all those workers walking off plants. So it's a big year for unions. So it's finally good to see that we've got a win. We've got a deal somewhere. So I'm really glad that this at least puts everybody in the WGA on a path back to work. They're not going to go to work immediately tomorrow unless they are on one of those late night or daytime talk shows. But and again, like you mentioned, they still have to ratify the deal even for that to happen. Which in the previous strike in 2008,
it does take a few days. Yeah.
Exactly. Which I don't remember if that deal happened on a weekend or not, but they took like 4 days.
I'm not sure.
So
I also think that, honestly, in a way, when I found out that they've been meeting since Wednesday, I was like, they have to have a deal today.
Yeah.
Like, they have to. So I'm excited. I'm excited that it is finalized. We're just getting it through. And that's honestly the biggest thing that also SAG can hope for as well, is this is settled. Only certain things are going to work. AMPTP has to settle, has to figure it out with us. So.
The good thing about this, so by the way, earlier today, I was reading about how like some of the members of the WGA, like on social media, they were making fun of how it was all over the news that AMPTP had put their best and final offer out. And there were all kinds of fun tweets about that. Like, this is the best, this is the final offer. Like, this is it. This is like, like just walking out the door. But just so you know, this is our final offer. You have something. Like, we're almost out the door. Are you gonna accept it? This is the best.
It's like when you need a car, but you're like, no, let me just try to fake out the guy who's selling me the car to see if I can get the best deal. But I really need a car. But maybe he'll give me a really good deal if I act like this.
So, a good thing is though that we got it sorted out the next day. Like Saturday, they said, "Oh, we got our final offer on the table." Then we were seeing things like, "Oh, the union is reviewing the final best offer, and now we've got a deal." So, however they got there, look, at the end of the day, we are here now. This is the good news. And of course, now we move on to the SAG strike, and hopefully they'll knock out a deal soon as well, because on the plus side, SAG and WGA were kind of stuck on very similar points of contention. It's not like they're looking for two very different kind of things. Like the biggest hurdles for both strikes were around AI. I know the writer's room issue is like a WGA related issue, but the really big thing for actors as well was AI. Yep. So if the MPTP has got a deal here for the WGA around AI, then I'm sure we can find some sort of common ground and something maybe similar. Like the framework would probably be a little bit different, but maybe the actors can sort this out. And hopefully if they can knock this out in a week, then look, we are still in September. We're like still a little bit away from the holiday season. So a lot of the big productions that are happening on this time of year can get back to work, whether it's all the holiday commercials, a lot of the voiceover work that happens this time of year for projects coming out next year.
Commercials have still been going.
No, I mean right. Yeah. So I was talking about, I think, yeah, I misspoke. I was talking more about like there are all kinds of projects that are on the calendar
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
springtime, things of that nature. Having said that, though, let me just quickly ask you to kind of finish this conversation for the time being, because I know we're going to revisit this as soon as we get some news about
Yeah,
this SAG
absolutely.
strike. But how long do you think it takes now for them to get a deal for SAG? Because we know that the AMPTP was not going to negotiate with both of the unions at the same time. So now that they've got one thing out the way, 5 days straight. I mean, there is a human element to this. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the legal departments of all these studios and AMPTP to like hash out 2 deals in a row. But I can imagine that if they were at this for 5 days straight, do they need to like stop and breathe a little? Because I don't even know if they've like got a meeting scheduled with
So
SAG yet.
SAG literally just issued SAG literally just like as we were already recording, I got like a deadline article
Yeah.
issued sort of like a congratulations to the WGA deal. And in that congratulation sort of announcement, they were like, we're really hoping the AMPTP comes and revisits our issues with us here soon. So
Yeah.
obviously, SAG has sort of extended an olive branch. It sounds like the AMPTP they're the ones that originally walked away from the SAG-AFTRA conversations, but with that being said, they have no choice. They have no choice.
Yeah.
WGA is like settled. If they want movies to go back to work, we gotta
Yeah.
get the SAG strike
Absolutely.
settled. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I could see it taking another month, realistically, but I don't think it's going to take any longer than another month. So
I certainly hope not. I mean, yeah, fingers crossed, because yeah, we are
literally,
getting towards the end of September, and I would hate for this to be something where like we're in Halloween and we're still don't have a deal.
that would
Um,
suck.
I personally, if I had to make a prediction, I think that the hard work is done at this point, because if they were willing, because here's the thing, like we may not have this stuff publicly available to us, but I bet you that people over at SAG, especially the key people in charge, probably have a inside track on what the deal was
Yeah.
or is between the WGA and AMPTP. That statement that they put out, the SAG did, I'm sure it wasn't a statement that was drafted like at last minute. I'm sure there's been conversations going on behind the scenes, and so therefore you probably could expect that next meeting between SAG and AMPTP might happen sooner than later. And then look, if they got to do a marathon run to get this thing back on track, then absolutely they got to, because when it comes down to it, there's big projects out there where they shut down these big superhero movies, a lot of other TV shows. Like, for example, Deadpool 3, Ryan Reynolds,
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman, like two incredibly busy people who they took that movie completely off the schedule because they don't even know when they can reschedule them to come back on set. And like all the set builds that they have put
With people
together.
like that and their schedules, it's just like, how are you ever going to know?
You book space and you rent space on a soundstage, and then those sets have to now sit there, and even when you're not filming, even when you're not paying the actors and the crew to be on set, you're renting sound stages to put those sets up, and then those sets have to stay there, and you're paying to keep those sets up. And especially for like studios where they're not filming at a soundstage that they own themselves, and even if they do, you're still somebody's got to get paid for it, and somebody else might have booked that soundstage for another time, and those days might be here. So there's a lot of challenges still ahead of us. But the good news is that we have taken that first step, and it's a big first step, and hopefully this kind of a strike doesn't happen. I mean, now we've had 2 strikes in like less than 20 years. So I'm hoping that we can at least go that long, if not hopefully much longer,
right?
until another work stoppage. And why can't we all just be friends? But
why can't we all be friends? Dan says. So for capitalism,
that's a bit naive.
That's why we can't all be friends.
Right.
It's just about money, Dan. That's
I'm just
all it is.
It's wishful thinking. It is. But like, hey, look, guys, let us know in the comments below what you think about the WGA strike finally coming to an end. And it's still tentative. They still have to ratify it. We still have to kind of cross the finish line. And SAG-AFTRA still has to get their deal done. But the AMPTP has finally come back to the table and gotten the ball rolling. So hopefully we'll get more progress on this front, and we will cover this story, continue to follow the SAG strike as it continues. Of course, guys, like and subscribe if you like content like this, and let us know in the comments below. Are you looking forward to getting back to work if you're part of the WGA? Are you going to ratify this deal? Or if you're on the outside looking in, then what are your reactions to the way things have played out?